I am Nathan Cole. I went to work at Horizon Analytics like any other day, quietly, steadily, doing my job well. But then during a company lunch, my boss, Claire Bennett, poured hot coffee on my lap. People laughed. No one spoke up. No one stopped her. And just when I thought I had completely vanished, my wife walked in. I stood in the lobby of Horizon Analytics, one hand holding a tray of 3 coffees, the other clutching a paper bag of breakfast sandwiches, grease seeping through and wetting my palm. The glass doors closed behind me, carrying the chill of a San Francisco morning. But that chill clung to me. Horizon Analytics sits right in the heart of the city, with large glass windows overlooking the San Francisco Bay, where light reflects off the Golden Gate Bridge. At 45, with an MBA from Stanford and 2 decades in data analytics, I was once a name at the Silicon Valley Data Summit. I helped my wife, Evelyn Harper, build predictive models for Harper Ventures, securing billion-dollar contracts with tech giants. But here, I was just the coffee guy.
Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video.
A group from marketing passed by. Not one nodding hello. An intern, maybe named Jake, looked up from his phone just long enough to say, "Hey Nathan, grab a few extra creamers next time, will ya?" No smile, no thanks, as if it was my job. I gave a faint smile, said, "Sure thing." Up on the second floor, my hand started burning from the coffee tray. I paused to switch hands, my eyes catching a large poster on the main staircase. Claire Bennett, my boss, 38, flashed a perfect smile. The caption read, "Meet the mind behind Horizon Analytics." Claire always knew how to tilt her head for photos, like she wasn't trying to pose. That smile was the same one she used to convince the board she was behind every idea, even mine. I once thought I'd be a vital part of this company, but now I was just a shadow behind Claire's spotlight. I arrived at the meeting room a few minutes late. Expensive leather chairs lined a long glass table, a large screen at the front flashing Claire's presentation slides. I set the coffee tray and sandwich bag beside her chair. Claire didn't look up, didn't thank me, just kept talking. "If we want third quarter growth, we need to think bigger than forecasts. We need disruption." That was my cue. Over the weekend, I'd built a model predicting purchasing behavior based on local weather trends. It wasn't just good, it could completely change the company's market approach. I cleared my throat, about to say, "Actually," Claire raised a hand, cutting me off. "Save it, Nathan. We're not running a math class here." Laughter rippled, light and easy, from people who never asked what I did all day. A vice president, named Thomas, asked, "What's Nathan's role again?" Claire answered, without hesitation, "Oh, he's kind of flexible support, like a utility player. Very helpful." Helpful. The word stuck in my throat, like a splinter. I scanned the table, hoping someone, anyone, would meet my gaze, but they either avoided my eyes, or stared blankly, like I was part of the furniture. I sat down, pulled out my notebook, pretended to take notes, while a part of me quietly broke apart. When the meeting ended, I cleared empty cups and napkins without being asked. The room emptied fast, everyone rushing back to desks, emails and deadlines. I lingered a moment, needing space to breathe. Then I felt it, a gaze. James Carter, head of legal, 50, stood just outside the door. He was quiet, observant, the kind who saw everything. His eyes met mine. For a moment, I thought he might say something, but he just nodded, almost imperceptibly, and walked away. A voice in my head said, "Of course he didn't speak. Silence is safe. Silence keeps jobs." I returned to my desk, staring out the window. The San Francisco sky was heavy with clouds that day, denser than usual. I just sat there, feeling the weight of invisibility. They didn't need to fire me to make me feel erased. They just stopped seeing me. The numbers, charts and code I'd sweated over, they were mine. But at Horizon Analytics, they bore Claire's name, or worse, Sophie Tran's, a young employee Claire favored. I remembered working with Evelyn, my wife, long nights in Harper Ventures' small office, analyzing data, building predictive models to convince investors. I wasn't just support. I laid the foundation for major contracts, like when we outbid a tech giant for a multi-million-dollar project. Evelyn always said, "Nathan, you're the brain behind it all." But at Horizon, what was I? A coffee runner, a punchline. That afternoon, I stepped into the elevator, and Sophie slipped in just before the doors closed. She was 28, sharp, ambitious, promoted after a year as an intern. Not because she was better, but because she played Claire's game. Sophie leaned in slightly, voice soft. "Hey Nathan. Hope you don't mind, but Claire asked me to present your slides next week. She said you'd be cool with it." I blinked, kept my voice even. "No problem." Sophie smiled. "Thanks, I mean you did all the groundwork. I'll just polish it up a bit." We rode the rest of the way in silence. I said nothing, but in my head I wondered how long until even I forgot I made those slides. The next morning, I arrived earlier than usual, hoping the quiet would give me some peace before the day started chipping away at me again. The office was half lit, with only the hum of vending machines, and the click of heels from someone in marketing. I headed to the lunchroom, needing water more than coffee. Passing a corner booth, I saw a few interns huddled, chuckling, but they scattered when they saw me. No greetings, no guilt. I didn't ask, just grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, then glanced at a phone left face up on the table. "Hey," a voice whispered. Joanna from accounting stepped close, holding her phone screen low. "I shouldn't show you, but you deserve to know." On the screen was an email chain, forwarded so many times it was barely readable, but clear as day was an image. Me wiping down a whiteboard in meeting room B. Captioned, "When seniority comes with a rag." The email subject read, "King without a crown." A reply below said, "At least he's good at cleaning up Claire's messes." Joanna looked at me, apologetic. I didn't smile. I nodded, said nothing, took my water, and left. That afternoon, the company held its monthly recognition meeting, with bagels, balloons, and a PowerPoint looping smiling headshots, with vague phrases like "made an impact," or "elevated our culture." I wasn't expecting anything, but I didn't expect this either. The slides cycled through names, faces, then came the Data Innovation Award. It was my model, predicting market trends, based on user behavior. But under award recipient, it said Sophie Tran. Not a word about me. Not in the corner, not in fine print. Nothing. Claire stood at the front, the picture of leadership. "Young talents like Sophie drive us forward," she said, gesturing to Sophie with pride. The applause was loud, drowning out the ringing in my ears. That noon, the company hosted a lunch with investors, a carefully staged event with name cards, ornate salad bowls, and rehearsed speeches. I stood by the long table near the windows, quietly pouring myself a second coffee. The room buzzed with orchestrated chatter, small talk calculated to impress the investor, an older man named Richard, with a friendly smile but sharp eyes that seemed to read everyone. Claire swept in, perfectly timed, in a flawless business dress, holding 2 tall lattes. Her gaze scanned the room, then locked on me with a glint I'd learned not to trust. She walked toward me, smiling like it meant something. And then at the last second, she tripped. The coffee cup in her right hand flew up, arced slightly, and landed squarely on my lap. The searing heat pierced through my pants, before I could fully register the pain. "Oh no!" Claire exclaimed, her voice high-pitched, saccharine, eyes wide. "Nathan, I'm so sorry, still your favorite coffee, right?" Laughter erupted. Not from everyone, but enough. A few turned away, as if unwilling to watch. 1 or 2 looked like they wanted to say something, but no one spoke. My lap burned, the fabric clinging to my skin, soaked. I locked eyes with Claire, gave a slight smile just enough to unsettle her. Then walked out of the room, slowly back straight, coffee dripping with each step. I went straight to the restroom, locked the stall door, and stood there, breathing. One hand braced against the cold metal wall, the other touching the red welt spreading across my thigh. This wasn't clumsiness. Not an accident. This was Claire's final warning. But she didn't know. It was also my warning to her. I changed into a pair of sweatpants I kept in my locker, wiped down as best I could, and returned to my desk. A new email popped into my inbox. Subject, "Congratulations Sophie Tran." I opened it, and it was an official announcement. Sophie had been promoted to Director of Data Operations, a role I'd built from the ground up, from workflows to systems. Below, a quote from Claire. "Young women like Sophie are the future of Horizon Analytics." I opened my personal drive, and uploaded the footage from the security camera near the elevator. Perfect angle, Claire's path, the smirk on her face just before the coffee spilled. Crystal clear. I added my training logs, work trackers, every instance I'd fixed Sophie's models or prepared her slides, complete with dates, signatures, even my handwritten notes. I named the folder, Public Disclosure, Stage 1. I pulled out my leather-bound notebook and wrote a single sentence, "They gave me coffee. I'll give them fire." That evening, the office was nearly empty. Only a few lights flickered across the floor. I was updating documents for the legal team when I heard a soft knock, just enough to notice. James Carter stood in the hallway, his face unreadable. He said nothing, just stepped forward, placed a brown envelope on my desk, and left. Inside was a signed HR complaint form, anonymous. It referenced a hostile incident in a public professional setting. No names, but the description could only mean the coffee incident. At the bottom, in HR's handwriting, submitted for review. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. There were eyes watching, quietly, maybe with regret. Not everyone would speak up, not everyone had the courage, but not everyone was blind. I started checking everything. I opened my drawer, found a stack of printed documents from last week, the latest presentation I'd prepared for the product team, with my charts, analyses and notes. But in the bottom right corner of each page was Sophie Tran's watermark. My name nowhere. I checked the printer tray and saw the timestamp, printed the previous afternoon, just 2 hours before the recognition meeting. I scanned the documents, added them to the Counter-Strike folder. I opened my email, drafted a new message, subject, documents. Nathan Cole, attached the scans, left the body blank. I hit send to myself. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then closed the laptop. They thought I was silent, because I didn't know how to fight. They didn't know I was just getting started. A few days later, I had to drop off a printed document stack at Claire's office. It was late, most employees had left, so I figured I'd leave it on her desk and go. The office door was ajar. I stepped inside and heard Helen's voice, sharp and patient. "Listen, you need to move him out soon, not later. People are starting to ask questions." Claire sighed, annoyed. "He's not going anywhere. That's the problem. He's too close. I've kept him in the room, but away from the table for 6 months now." I stood still, motionless as the air, silent, but not empty. I gently placed the documents on a side table, backed out. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't angry, I felt awake. Back at my desk, I opened a new email. Subject, documents. Nathan Cole, Stage 2. Attached a recording from the phone in my coat pocket, still running. I hit send to myself. That night, at home I sat on the apartment floor in a loose sweater, a cold cup of tea beside me. I pulled out an old shoebox of family photos. One showed me holding a science fair award, with Evelyn behind me, smiling proudly. I once thought I was invisible, because I wasn't good enough. But I wasn't invisible for lack of worth. I was invisible, because I refused to shrink to fit their image of me. That night, I created a new folder on my laptop. Contingency plan. If they were coming for me, I wouldn't sit still. They'd underestimated me for too long. And if they thought I'd go quietly, they weren't looking closely. I walked into the office with a strange new feeling, as if the air had shifted. After days of gathering evidence, from security footage to mocking emails, I was no longer the man who just bowed his head and took it. The contingency plan folder on my laptop was now full, with every document, recording and trace of the injustice Claire and others had inflicted. I was no longer Nathan Cole, the coffee guy. I was the one ready to face them. That day, Horizon Analytics held a major meeting with the investor Richard, who'd witnessed the coffee incident. The conference room was staged like a theater, long glass table, leather chairs, and a big screen primed for Claire's presentation. I sat in the far corner, near the humming printer, my name once again left off the agenda. Sophie Tran had her own segment, while I, as usual, was unmentioned. She glanced at me once, then back to her tablet, as if she knew full well I'd been sidelined. They all did. The meeting kicked off with a presentation full of recycled stats, half of which came from my research. When an intern misread a data set I'd built from scratch, no one corrected him. Claire stood to wrap up, her smile confident like a principal at an awards ceremony. "This is the future of Horizon Analytics," she said, gesturing to the younger team. "And frankly, fresh eyes honestly often see things we miss. Eyes like mine, it seemed, were just throwaways." The meeting ran long. As people started leaving, I checked my email. A new message had landed, sent to a small group that accidentally included me. Subject, Thursday briefing, internal. The first line read, "Honestly, he's only good for fetching coffee and checking the diversity box." A reply followed, "He still thinks he's got a shot at VP. Cute." Another, "Should frame the rag wiping pic. Or name a conference room after him." I didn't react, not outwardly. I forwarded it to my personal secure email. Subject, Inquisition, Stage 1, body blank. I closed the tab, stood up, and headed to the hallway. Claire was by the espresso machine, chatting with Jake when she saw me, and smiled. "Nathan, don't forget to top off the sugar in the machine. Okay, it's running low." I stepped closer, just enough for her to hear, voice steady, "If you push me again, I'll push back." Not like before, not silently. Claire's lips curved into that familiar poster smile. "Come on, Nathan, lighten up, it's just work." But there was a pause, less than half a second, before she went on. That pause was all I needed. "Transfer of control," she said simply. "Effective immediately. Horizon Analytics is now majority owned by Harper Ventures. A discreet deal, as planned." Claire's face didn't collapse. It froze. "This is a joke." Evelyn didn't flinch. "No, what's been happening in this company for the past year is the joke. I'm here to end it." Claire laughed, sharp and cold. "You bought us out to get revenge because I protected this place." Evelyn replied. "You protected a lie. You built a brand. You erased people." Then she turned to James. "I'll appoint an interim compliance and ethics lead, starting with a full audit of internal communications, reporting structures, and project authorship." James nodded, steady. Evelyn looked at me. I pulled a USB drive from my pocket, walked to the front of the room, and plugged it into the screen. One click, and the first slide appeared. A screenshot of an email calling me diversity decor. The next slide, a client proposal with Sophie's name plastered over my model. Then the security footage, crystal clear, showing Claire's smirk before the coffee spilled. Finally, a slide with bold text. "If silence protects the abuser, let truth redeem." No music, no narration, just the truth, laid bare. Sophie, in the corner, buried her face in her hands. James looked straight at Claire. "Do you have anything to say?" Claire blinked, once, twice. "This is an attack." I replied. "This is a correction." Evelyn stood, effective immediately. "Claire Bennett is removed from her role. A review of all project leads will begin this week. Your contract is terminated, pending legal review." Claire's voice cracked. "You're doing this now in front of him?" Evelyn didn't look at me. Just said, "You did this to yourself. You just didn't expect someone to say it out loud." The conference room fell silent after Evelyn's declaration. Claire Bennett sat there, her face like stone, the usual perfect smile gone. Sophie Tran bowed her head, hands covering her face, as if trying to vanish from everyone's gaze. James Carter, with a resolute look, nodded slightly to Evelyn, confirming he'd oversee the audit she'd ordered. Helen Brooks, Claire's mother, sat at the far end of the table, staring out the window, her eyes empty, as if she didn't recognize her own daughter. I stood there, still gripping the USB drive, feeling not triumph, but release. Claire shot up, her voice trembling but clinging to control. "You can't do this. This is my company." Evelyn responded, calm but cutting. "No, Claire. This is the company of those who built it. And she pointed at me, built more than you'll ever admit." I looked at Claire, saying nothing. It wasn't necessary. The truth spoke for me. The room slowly emptied. Claire's assistants hurried out, avoiding my eyes. Sophie quietly packed her things, not daring to look up. James paused beside me, placed a hand on my shoulder, and whispered, "You did the right thing." Then he left. Helen was the last to go. She didn't look at me, didn't speak, just walked slowly, as if carrying a shattered legacy. I stayed behind, staring at the screen still displaying the words, "If silence protects the abuser, let truth redeem." I pulled the USB drive, slipped it into my blazer pocket, as if I'd done this 100 times. A few hours later, I received an email from Sophie. Subject: I owe you an apology. She wrote that she knew what was happening, that she let it slide because she feared losing her job, that she wasn't proud of choosing silence. I read the email, but didn't reply. I saved it to the contingency plan folder, but didn't delete it. Sophie submitted her resignation shortly after, citing a need to realign personal values. I didn't stop her. She chose her path, and I chose mine. Claire was officially fired by the end of the day. The nameplate on her office door was removed. The door repainted. Helen didn't show up to defend her daughter. Didn't send emails or call. I heard she withdrew her shares from Horizon Analytics, leaving without explanation. The office atmosphere shifted, but not instantly. Some colleagues avoided me, as if acknowledging the truth would force them to pick a side. Others, like a few younger tech team members, started looking at me differently, not with awe, but respect. That afternoon, I got an email from Marcus Reed, a client in Denver I'd worked with. He forwarded a proposal Claire had sent him, a multi-region data analysis plan. Marcus wrote briefly, "Nathan, didn't you mention this structure last quarter?" I opened the attachment. It was my model word for word. Every chart, every prediction grid. Only 2 names were listed, Claire Bennett and Sophie Tran. No notes, no thanks, not a single mention of me. But in the metadata, my watermark remained, timestamp clear. I saved the file to contingency plan, feeling like I'd reclaimed a piece of myself. After that fateful meeting, Horizon Analytics was no longer the same. No more mocking laughter, no more averted glances. Claire's nameplate was gone, her office repainted, as if she'd never been there. Sophie Tran had left, and Helen Brooks didn't return. But what struck me most was the shift in the air. Lighter, as if the building itself was breathing again. Nathan Cole was now interim leader of Horizon Analytics, a role I never imagined taking. But sitting in that chair, I knew I didn't just want to fix past wrongs. I wanted to build a place where no one had to feel invisible. I started with the small things. One morning, I walked into the office early, just as the cleaning crew left. Passing through the main lobby, I saw a new poster hung beside the company's mission statement. It bore a quote from me. "Silence gave me strength, but truth gave me a voice." The receptionist smiled at me, not awkwardly, not out of duty, but genuinely. I nodded, stepped into my office, and began reviewing new proposals. That afternoon, I met with James Carter and the new head of HR, a woman named Linda. We sat down to finalize the company's first ethical collaboration code. I proposed clear policies, project authorship credit, transparent oversight, and whistleblower protection. For the first time, we named things no one dared mention before: manipulation, sabotage, false allies. I wrote each line, recalling the days my name was erased from my own work. When James signed the draft, he looked at me and said simply, "This code wouldn't exist without you." I replied, "It shouldn't have needed me. But it does now." Linda nodded, handed me the pen to sign. I signed, feeling like I'd laid the first brick of a new foundation. One evening, I sat with Evelyn at our San Francisco apartment, overlooking the twinkling lights of the bay. She poured me a cup of tea, no cream, no sugar, just how I liked it. I told her about the scholarship program, the ethical code, the feeling of standing up and being heard. Evelyn smiled, her eyes sparkling. "You know," she said, "that predictive model you built for Harper Ventures back then. It didn't just win us a contract. It changed how the tech industry saw us." I looked at her, surprised. "You never told me that," I said. She shrugged, "Because I knew you didn't need praise. You just needed to know you made a difference." Evelyn's words made me reflect on my journey. At Horizon, I once thought silence was weakness, that staying calm was surrender. But I was wrong. Silence, when chosen deliberately, was strength. It gave me time to observe, gather evidence, prepare. And when I spoke, the truth spoke for me. I looked at Evelyn, recalling the nights we coded together, analyzed data, turned Harper Ventures from an idea into an empire. At Horizon, I was doing the same, not to destroy, but to build. The next day, I received an email from a young tech team member who'd spoken up in an internal meeting. She wrote, "Thank you, Nathan. I used to think I had to stay silent to keep my job. You showed me I could speak up." I read it, feeling a circle close. I didn't reply right away, but saved it to a new folder. Voices. I wanted to remember that change didn't just come from big decisions, but from small moments when someone dared to stand. I stepped out of the office, San Francisco's lights spilling across the bay, golden like a promise. I didn't need applause, didn't need spotlights. I just needed to know I'd made a better place, not just for me, but for those who'd come after. I thought of the scholarship students, young people with sharp eyes, quiet but not invisible. They'd be Horizon's future, and I'd make sure they were seen. I went home, sat beside Evelyn, and for the first time in a long while, I felt unburdened. "I did it," I said. She took my hand, smiled. "You always did, Nathan. They just see it now." I nodded, knowing this journey wasn't about making Claire fall. It was about making space for me to rise. I wrote an internal blog post, sharing my story. I spoke of feeling invisible, of how I gathered evidence, listened when no one else did. I didn't call for revenge. I called for truth. If you've ever felt invisible in work, family, or your own story, you're not alone, I wrote. And more importantly, you're not powerless. Listen, keep proof and choose your moment to speak. You don't need to destroy anyone to find yourself. Just stop shrinking. I stood up, turned off the office lights, and stepped outside. No applause, no stage lights, just a gentle quiet wrapping around me, like a coat I'd sewn myself, stitch by stitch. I looked out at San Francisco's streets, lights twinkling, like fallen stars. I didn't get here by luck. I got here by watching, holding steady, and choosing not to become like those who tried to erase me. I helped Evelyn build Harper Ventures, and now I was reshaping Horizon Analytics. But above all, I'd found myself again. Nathan Cole's story at Horizon Analytics reflects real issues in today's U.S. workplaces, especially in Silicon Valley's cutthroat tech industry, where competition can mask injustice. Nathan, a 45-year-old data expert, was dismissed by his boss Claire Bennett, who stole his work and mocked him in internal emails, like calling him diversity decor. The coffee incident, Claire deliberately spilling hot coffee on him in front of investors, symbolizes public humiliation, echoing the pressure to endure mistreatment to keep jobs in American companies, where hustle culture often prioritizes image over substance. Nathan's quiet evidence gathering, from security footage to stolen documents, shows persistence and strategy, vital skills in modern workplaces, where misconduct is often subtly concealed. Evelyn Harper's arrival, Nathan's billionaire wife, to buy the company and fire Claire, underscores the value of personal networks, common in U.S. culture, where connections can unlock transformative opportunities. The lesson is in America's workplaces, where bias and unfairness persist, you must actively protect your worth. Keep records, like Nathan's contingency plan folder. Build a support network like he did with Evelyn and James Carter, and choose your moment to speak, as Nathan did with his USB drive reveal. Don't let silence become complicity. Use it as a strategic tool to assert yourself, turning small slights into fuel to rise. Just as Nathan did in reshaping Horizon Analytics, and reclaiming his voice. If my story resonates with you, subscribe to follow the journey of uncovering forgotten voices at Horizon Analytics, and beyond. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video, where we keep searching for truth and the power of purposeful silence.